At the beginning of episode 6, we see JJ sitting in class. She's lost in thought about the situation involving her friends and isn't sure how long they can keep things going the way they are. She keeps trying to come up with a solution to a problem that had unintentionally developed around her. At the same time, she doesn't know whether she should step in herself or simply let things play out naturally. She reassures herself that she had sensed something was wrong from the very beginning because some of Yuri's friends were no longer treating him the way they used to, almost as if they had started distancing themselves from him. The strange part comes when she opens her bag and finds it packed with boxes of chocolate as if a supermarket had exploded inside it. At that moment, she decides to use the opportunity to figure out what her friends have been arguing about. She repeatedly calls CN over while placing all the chocolate boxes on her desk. The second he notices them shining in front of him, he practically turns into a little kid. JJ immediately starts teasing him, waving pieces of chocolate around and tempting him. Before long, all of his friends are drawn in by the chocolates, especially CN, whose biggest weakness is sweets. JJ then makes a deal with him. If he answers her questions honestly, every box of chocolate will belong to him. Right then, Keifer sends her a message telling her to stop what she's doing because it isn't funny, but she ignores him and brushes him off. By this point, CN can barely control himself anymore, so he rushes toward her as if he's ready to say, "Your wish is my command, ma'am." Before giving him anything, JJ makes it clear that if he wants all the boxes, he has to tell the truth and avoid beating around the bush. Meanwhile, the rest of the class is struggling to keep themselves under control. She tells him to be honest. CN glances around before explaining that when Yuri arrived in class, it was obvious he was upset with Keifer. Since everyone had their own circle of friends, the situation escalated and the class ended up splitting into different groups. Hearing this makes JJ feel bad because she realizes the issue wasn't turning into a major conflict between Yuri and Keifer themselves. Instead, their friends were the ones clashing with each other. Since CN had already spilled everything, Keifer tries to shut him up, but JJ steps in to defend him and tells Keifer to mind his own business. In the end, JJ keeps her promise and hands over all the chocolate boxes she has. Eventually, the teacher walks into the classroom and tells everyone to get ready because he's about to hand out the exam papers. JJ has eaten so much chocolate that she's unusually excited to take the test, even telling the teacher that she feels incredibly smart today. After some time passes, the exam comes to an end. The teacher collects the papers. Some students manage to answer the questions, some practically give up on the entire subject, and others don't write anything at all. JJ doesn't want to hand in her paper because there are a few points where she got stuck, but the teacher takes it anyway. He also reminds her to bring the documents that the principal had asked her to get from her previous school. Naturally, getting home isn't easy for her afterward because she's frustrated with herself over how the exam went. She sends CN a message and asks him to call her. If only she hadn't done that because he ends up making things even more confusing. The moment he calls, he goes into full drama mode and blurts out, "I'm sorry, JJ. Please forgive us. We never meant for this to happen," and then immediately hangs up. At that point, JJ feels like reaching through the phone and shaking him just to figure out what he was actually trying to say. Meanwhile, we see Ella at JJ's house trying to gather the courage to talk to her. As soon as JJ notices her, she's shocked that Ella actually came all the way there. Without any hesitation, she asks what she's doing in her room. Ella calmly replies that she simply did what Keifer knows how to do and then tells her directly that she's hurting Yuri. She says JJ should think things through because Yuri doesn't deserve to be treated this way. JJ honestly has no idea how she's supposed to respond to all that emotional intensity, so she sarcastically starts clapping for her. That makes it easy for Ella to fire back by saying that JJ should have cared about Yuri's feelings in the first place. Before leaving, Ella looks her up and down and assures her that the day will come when she regrets choosing Keifer, just like she regrets her own choices. As soon as Ella walks out, JJ mocks her and takes a jab at the way she talks. Later, the entire class heads out on a school camping trip. Yuri is surprised when he receives a message from Ella asking to speak with him privately. Once the students arrive at the campsite, they're disappointed because it's nothing like the place they had imagined. But putting that aside for a moment, let's focus on the way Keifer keeps looking at JJ. He's practically teasing her with nothing but his eyes. The funny part comes when Freya and her friends show up acting like fashion models. They're wearing high heels to look stylish, but because of their fake confidence and impractical shoes, they can barely walk and end up constantly leaning on one another for support. On the other side, Gio and the rest of the guys can't stop laughing at them. Around that time, the trip supervisors arrive and explain how everyone should move around safely in the area. The boys are genuinely excited, and before setting off, the entire group gathers for a class photo. The friends also take plenty of selfies together. As night falls, everyone starts setting up their camping gear. JJ doesn't like the place very much because she doesn't think it's anything special. On top of that, she's worried there might be snakes or other creepy things around. around. Keifer comes over to help her set up her tent, and during their conversation, she tells him that the next day she's planning to visit her old school to get the signature the principal asked her to obtain. As soon as Keifer hears that, he offers to go with her, but she refuses. He reassures her that he isn't going to leave her alone, and Yuri also insists that she shouldn't go to the school by herself. JJ, however, doesn't like that idea at all. Keifer then tells her that she'll eventually agree, whether willingly or not. She has no idea what he's planning or what's going on inside his head. Later, he tells one of his friends to bring him his phone and have it ready for the next day. The following morning, JJ arrives at her old school and greets the security guard, especially because the two of them always had a good relationship. The man talks to her in a way that makes it seem like he's genuinely worried about her and asks why she came back to the school. She explains that she needs to get some paperwork signed. He then tells her that a lot of bad things have happened since she left. JJ responds by pointing out that the people who were causing trouble have already been expelled and that she herself transferred away, so the school should be much calmer now than it used to be. The guard continues telling her about some of her former classmates. Some of them are no longer at the school, while others are still there. Before leaving, JJ is surprisingly polite. She turns back to him and apologizes for all the foolish things she said in the past that may have hurt him. Being a kind-hearted person, he tells her that he has already forgotten about all of it and that he has always thought of her like a daughter. As she walks through the school, however, she can't shake the fear that she might run into a bully named Cyrus. When she finally enters the office, she feels a little relieved. That relief disappears instantly when she notices the very person she was afraid of sitting inside, waiting as if he already knew she was coming. Cyrus immediately starts talking to her in an intimidating and disrespectful manner. With a threatening grin, he says, "So I finally found you. You actually came to me on your own." It's obvious from JJ's expression that she's terrified of him. She can't even get a single word out. She turns to leave, but Cyrus grabs her by the neck and stops her. He mockingly asks whether walking into the bathroom and walking out of it are the same thing to her. Then he says that he misses slapping her around. He even wonders why she isn't kicking him the way her friends used to teach her to do. Instead of fighting back, JJ begs him to let her go. She tells him that she's weak now and can't handle it. Later, we realize that the security guard had actually been frightened from the very beginning while speaking to her. He's a simple man who's afraid of people like Cyrus and his group, which is why he had been trying to warn her from a distance without saying it directly. The strange thing is that while Cyrus has her in his grip, he wants her to experience the same fear and helplessness he once felt. Once he's convinced that she truly believes her life is about to end, he finally lets go. JJ immediately collapses to the floor, completely overwhelmed by fear and unable to control herself. Cyrus just laughs at her before walking away. Eventually, the supervisor arrives and notices the tears on JJ's face. JJ desperately wants her to sign the unfinished paperwork as quickly as possible so she can leave. Because JJ had caused so many problems at the school in the past, the supervisor points out how much she has changed. She reminds her of the days when JJ used to argue with her, get angry, and shout in her face as if they were the same age. The supervisor then tells her to wait a little longer while she checks her records, but poor JJ is still in shock and doesn't respond. Instead, she quietly walks out of the office. The moment she steps outside, Cyrus spots her again. He tells her to stop and talk to him, but she's terrified of him. When he blocks her path, she finally gathers her courage and punches him right in the face. The very next second, his thug friends surround her from all sides. They don't hesitate for even a moment and look ready to jump her together. Trembling with fear, JJ begs Cyrus to stop what he's doing. She tells him that she doesn't want to do anything bad to him and doesn't want to take out her anger on him. But Cyrus tells her that he won't let her go until he makes her go through the same thing he went through. Then one of his friends stabs her in the leg with a pair of scissors, and the poor girl immediately collapses to the ground. The real problem is that there are no teachers or supervisors around to step in and stop these kids from going too far. Cyrus keeps laughing while continuing to hit her. Desperate, JJ cries out for help. At that moment, it becomes painfully clear that things might have turned out very differently if she had listened to Keifer and let him come with her. His friends hold her down while Cyrus takes a deep breath and gets ready to punch her in the face. But just before he can do it, someone suddenly calls out JJ's name. The moment catches everyone off guard. It turns out to be Yuri, Keifer, and the rest of their classmates. Without hesitation, they rush in, drag the boys away from her, and quickly put them in their place. David is there too, and together they make sure Cyrus and his gang understand exactly who they're dealing with. JJ's loyal friends finally get their revenge, and a huge fight breaks out. Meanwhile, the school staff seem completely absent from the situation. Nobody shows up to stop what's happening. At the same time, a group of girls is standing nearby talking about how handsome Yuri is. As for Cyrus, the guy who was acting like a fearless lion just moments ago, all the confidence drains from his face. He looks completely shaken. He wants to know why they're defending JJ and why they're all so angry on her behalf. Almost the entire class answers him with the same response. She's their friend, and they can't stand by and watch something like this happen to her. Yuri tells him that JJ is part of their section, while Keifer goes a step further and bluntly says that she's his. The message is clear. Anyone who messes with her is going to have a problem with them. When Cyrus hears that, he asks Keifer what he possibly sees in her. The second those words leave his mouth, Keifer starts hitting him again and refuses to stop. The only reason he finally backs off is because JJ calls out to him and tells him to stop. She reminds him that he was only recently discharged from the hospital and says she doesn't want him getting hurt because of her. Surprisingly, Keifer listens. When he notices that JJ is becoming overwhelmed after seeing Cyrus covered in blood, he takes her away from the scene. Unfortunately, Yuri feels troubled when he sees the two of them leaving together. The next day, everyone gathers at a restaurant for a meal. David strongly insists that JJ go to the hospital and get checked out, but she tells him she's fine. She also explains that going to the hospital would only make the situation more complicated and draw more attention to what happened. Most importantly, she doesn't want her family finding out about any of it. Meanwhile, Keifer notices JJ sitting with David and talking to him while Yuri is seated nearby. He walks over carrying a plate of food, sets it down in front of her, and takes a seat across from her. He tells her to eat. When she says she isn't hungry, he warns her that if she refuses, he'll personally take her to the hospital himself. David doesn't like Keifer's arrogant, bossy attitude one bit. Frustrated, he gets up and leaves. JJ calls after him, but he doesn't respond. Poor Yuri watches the entire exchange from behind his glasses, unable to do anything about it. Keifer, on the other hand, gets straight to the point. Sitting beside JJ, he tells her that from now on she is not allowed to go anywhere alone unless someone is with her. JJ still has enough courage to ask why. That forces Keifer to remind her of everything that happened. He tells her that if they hadn't shown up when they did, there's no telling what could have happened to her. If nobody had gone looking for her, they might have ended up visiting her in a hospital instead of sitting here talking to her now. With complete shamelessness, JJ tells them that what happened was totally normal and that it was no big deal. Her answer is so unbelievable that even a stone would probably have something to say about it. Keifer immediately tells her to think back and remember exactly what Cyrus did to her. That's when she explains that her bad luck was that Cyrus had been expelled from school but had only returned about 2 weeks earlier. Neither Keifer nor Yuri can understand how she already knew Cyrus was back at school and still chose to go there alone without being afraid. Both of them end up asking her the same question in different ways. They want to know if she had planned to meet Cyrus at the school beforehand. When JJ looks at both of them and asks, "Are you jealous?" they answer at the exact same time. Absolutely. The funniest part is that this entire conversation is happening right in front of their classmates. David eventually comes back and finds himself watching the drama of this love triangle unfold. JJ wants to know why they're both so upset. Yuri answers that maybe it's because she got hurt. Then she asks Keifer what he thinks. Keifer tells her that he's jealous because Cyrus used to be her friend, and he doesn't like seeing her talking to him for any reason whatsoever. Trying to lighten the mood, Keifer turns to the others and asks how they felt when they saw JJ injured. One by one, everyone gives their answer. One person says he felt jealous too. Another admits that seeing her in pain nearly made him cry. Everyone expresses their feelings in their own way. Since JJ is even more innocent than the rest of them, she suddenly asks what they think of Cyrus. The group immediately tells her that he's as tall as a date palm tree and doesn't have a single attractive feature. Most importantly, Keifer makes something very clear. He tells JJ that if she ever goes off on her own again and meets Cyrus without telling anyone, he'll lock her inside his house and never let her leave. In other words, he wants to make absolutely sure she stays safe. At that point, Yuri jumps in and finishes Keifer's thought by saying that while she's locked inside, they'll have some fun dealing with Cyrus themselves. Keifer instantly agrees and says, "Now that's exactly what I was thinking." JJ is left completely speechless as she watches the flood of emotions pouring out of both Yuri and Keifer. That same night, when everyone returns to their campsite, they discover that all of their belongings have been stolen, including their food and drinks. Before long, they find out which section is responsible for the prank. JJ becomes upset because she can't find her teddy bear anywhere. In the middle of all this, Yusuf suddenly starts yelling and jumping around because he thinks there's a snake nearby. The rest of the students immediately back away because, from where they're standing, it really does look like a snake. No joke. JJ actually tries to get a closer look and deal with it herself, but Keifer panics and quickly picks her up and carries her away from the area. Eventually, they discover what really happened. The students from Section A had been playing a prank on them. In a very strange way, they had left behind a toy snake to scare everyone. Yusuf is incredibly pleased with himself afterward. Grinning from ear to ear, he turns to JJ and asks, "Do you know what I can do with this baby snake?" JJ responds, and a huge smile spreads across Yusuf's Yusuf's face. Because he's genuinely mischievous, he gathers his friends and tells them that they should all get some sleep. Then they can wake up early the next morning, and he'll show them exactly what he plans to do with it. The next day, they finally put Yusuf's plan into action. They sneak out quietly, with Yusuf carrying the toy snake over his shoulder. The group hides nearby and watches Section A, determined to get revenge for the prank they pulled on them. On the other side, they spot Freya chatting with her friends. Meanwhile, we return to David, who is assigning responsibilities to Keifer, JJ, Yuri, and CN for the mission. We see that CN has tied the snake to a fishing line. David takes it and carefully tosses it behind the girls so no one notices what they're doing. JJ and Yuri can barely hold back their laughter as they watch everything unfold. Suddenly, the girls turn around and spot the snake. Panic breaks out instantly. They abandon Freya and run for their lives. When Freya finally notices the snake right in front of her, she nearly has a meltdown herself. The funniest part is that the snake looks incredibly realistic, and the fishing line makes the prank even more convincing. CN keeps pulling the line to make the snake lift its head, making it seem alive. As soon as the girls flee the area, JJ, Yuri, and the others move in. They recover everything that had been stolen from them, including JJ's teddy bear. Afterward, the entire Section E celebrates because they finally got all of their belongings back. Once the mission is complete, everyone returns to their campsite. Since there aren't enough tents, they suggest that 2 people share each tent. JJ wants to share a tent with CN, but Keifer immediately shuts that idea down. He tells all of his friends that nobody is allowed to share a tent with her. Then Yuri finally speaks up and points out that includes you too. Keifer has no choice but to accept it, because if the rule applies to everyone else, it has to apply to him as well. We can clearly see that he's annoyed and frustrated, especially because JJ is thrilled that she gets a tent all to herself. Deep down, Keifer had been hoping she would choose to share a tent with him. Later, JJ is in the restroom when she overhears 2 girls from Section A talking about the snake incident from the previous night. She listens to their conversation while secretly laughing to herself because in reality, they were the ones who started the whole thing. The important part comes after the girls leave. JJ runs into her friend Kai. Kai immediately asks about Keifer and warns JJ to be careful around him. She tells her that Keifer gets extremely jealous whenever another girl is close to him. Kai even asks how many people need to warn JJ about Keifer before she starts taking those warnings seriously. She insists that he can't be trusted and claims that he acts the same way with every girl. Even though JJ is a little concerned, she still defends him. She tells Kai that Keifer has never treated her badly and that everything is fine. According to her, they're just friends and there's nothing more between them. Later on, the students from the different sections gather in the cafeteria for a meal. JJ is with her friends, picking up her food. Freya, however, clearly doesn't have good intentions. She deliberately sets a trap for JJ. Carrying a tray of food, she positions herself directly in front of her and intentionally tries to create a situation where the tray will spill. But JJ stands her ground, completely ruining Freya's plan. One of Freya's friends is about to say something, but Freya immediately silences her and talks to her as if she were a servant working for her. Then she turns to JJ and starts speaking in a smug, arrogant tone. She mentions that she heard about JJ's choice, specifically her decision to choose Keifer over Yuri. As Freya continues making a fool of herself, one of her friends advises her to calm down and leave before things get worse. Up to this point, JJ has no interest in fighting. She looks Freya straight in the eye and makes it clear that she doesn't want any drama. It's obvious from Freya's expression that every word coming out of her mouth is filled with venom. She points out that JJ has become even prettier than before, and then suddenly grabs her by the hair. Yuri absolutely hates seeing that happen. Instead of staying silent, he immediately calls out Freya's name in a warning tone. Freya is already furious. She turns to Yuri and warns him not to say a single word to her. Before he can respond, she cuts him off and claims that she knows everything about him. She then makes it very clear to JJ that she sees her as nothing more than a girl who constantly flirts with boys. The thing is, JJ doesn't really care about Freya's attitude. She calmly lets her know that she's honestly embarrassed by the way she's behaving. When another one of JJ's friends tries to warn Freya about her behavior, Freya responds as if she has dirt on everyone standing there. She makes it clear that she dislikes the way they act, and then drops a surprising piece of information. She says that her older brother, who turns out to be Pierce, wouldn't be happy if he found out that they had spoken to her like this. The moment JJ hears Pierce's name, she freezes. She's completely caught off guard and immediately starts wondering what kind of relationship Freya has with him. Confused, she asks what everyone has been hiding from her. Freya tells her that it would be better to learn the truth from the people who call themselves her friends. She claims that they laugh behind her back and says that one day she'll discover everything for herself. At that point, JJ wants answers. She asks Freya to tell her exactly what has been kept from her, but Freya keeps dancing around the subject instead of giving her a straight answer. Frustrated, JJ finally tells her that if she thinks dropping a few vague hints is supposed to make her feel better, then she's mistaken. She points directly at Yuri and Keifer and says that she'd rather hear the truth from them. At that moment, Yuri and Keifer already look nervous. They're clearly worried that Freya might reveal something that would make JJ angry with them. Just as Freya is about to speak, tears begin running down her face before she can get the words out. Then she turns around and walks away from everyone. Once she's gone, JJ immediately stands in front of Yuri and Keifer and demands to know what all of this means. Before either of them can explain, Keifer tells her to eat first. He points out that everyone is tired and hungry and says they can talk about it later. But by then, the issue is already stuck in JJ's mind. She refuses to let it go and insists on knowing the truth right away. When she starts getting angry with them, Keifer tries to explain that she doesn't need to know about some old incident from the past. He tells her that whatever she hears won't do her any good anyway. JJ doesn't see it that way at all. Instead, she interprets their behavior as proof that she isn't important to them. She feels like they don't consider her a meaningful part of their lives, and that thought only makes her even angrier. The more they avoid answering her questions, the more convinced she becomes that she doesn't really matter to them. Eventually, she turns around and walks away. Before leaving, she tells all of them not to follow her. We then see Keifer, Yuri, and the rest of their friends standing there, completely unsure of how they should handle the situation. The truth is that JJ means a great deal to all of them, and none of them want resentment to come between them. Meanwhile, JJ keeps walking without any particular destination in mind. She continues wandering until her feet eventually lead her to a place that looks like a small waterfall. Standing there alone, she quietly thinks to herself, wow, being alone really is peaceful. Just then, JJ notices Freya sitting alone and crying. Since JJ is naturally both compassionate and curious, she decides to approach her and find out why she's so upset, even though Freya was the one who had humiliated her earlier. Freya, however, can barely stand being around her. She doesn't even want to look at JJ and immediately asks what she wants. JJ responds by saying that if Freya has something she wants to say, she should just say it instead of keeping it bottled up. That's when Freya asks whether her friends still haven't told her anything. When she realizes that JJ genuinely knows nothing, she finally reveals that she was involved with both Keifer and Yuri in the past. That revelation alone hits JJ like a truck. Suddenly, she realizes that Ella wasn't the only person connected to them in that way. Freya then opens up completely. She explains that after Percy's life fell apart, Yuri intentionally got close to her. He was always there for her, supporting her and helping her through difficult times. Eventually, she fell deeply in love with him. But the moment Yuri became certain that she truly loved him, he slowly began distancing himself from her. Over time, he became colder and colder until one day he ended the relationship entirely. The experience exhausted her emotionally and mentally because she had only recently recovered from everything she had gone through with Percy. Even now, she still hasn't forgiven Yuri for what he did to her. After that, Keifer entered the picture. He also started showing interest in her. At first, he treated her like a queen and made her feel special, but at the same time, he viewed her almost like a possession. He hated seeing anyone else get close to her and would become jealous whenever she even looked in Yuri's direction. One time, while her friends were celebrating together, Keifer completely lost his temper. He behaved the same way JJ had seen him act before. He grabbed her face and warned her not to talk to anyone except him. He even told her that if she ever did something against him, he would make her regret it. As Freya finishes telling her story, she explains that Keifer's suffocating jealousy and constant need to keep her all to himself eventually pushed her away. Out of frustration, she started provoking him, making new friends, and deliberately showing him that she could spend time with other people. Because of their endless arguments and problems, the relationship eventually fell apart. From that point on, people who didn't really know her started labeling her as the kind of girl who changed boyfriends every week. Hearing all of this leaves JJ lost in thought. She realizes that every time she tries to learn more about Keifer and Yuri's past, she ends up getting hurt. It bothers her when they keep things from her, but she also begins to understand that knowing the truth can sometimes be even more painful than not knowing. When Freya finally stands up, JJ wants to comfort her. However, Freya refuses to let her come any closer. A lot of that reaction comes from jealousy. After all, Yuri and Keifer constantly argue and compete over JJ, something Freya can't help but notice. In the end, JJ is left standing there alone, confused and overwhelmed. She becomes convinced that there are still many secrets being kept from her, but she also believes that one day she'll learn the whole truth. And with that, episode 6 comes to an end. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.